watching 1973's Don't Look Now, directed by Nicholas Roeg, who also directed another film that we'd previously seen, The Witches. This is very, very different from that.
Yeah, and by the way, we didn't watch this one with the kids.
No, it's just you and I. This tells the story of a couple who, unfortunately, their daughter drowns while they're nearby, and the film seems to pick up a few months later, where the husband has taken a job in restoring an old church in Venice, and
he brought his wife along.
And
they let their other child, their son, just go to a boarding school. So, I don't know.
As you can tell, the Mister is not a fan of this film.
Yeah, the motivations of these people and the behavior of these people, actually the behavior of everybody in this movie is just so bizarre and clunky, and just, I can't imagine anybody in the world acting this way, ever. And the performances are just weird. There's just so much weird stuff going on in this movie.
What did you think of the story? Was it believable? Was it not believable? Performances aside, I guess this is a study. I mean, it's not really a horror movie. It's more of a thriller, I guess, or a suspense movie. It does get put on a lot of lists of movies that are emulated and copied, and I guess maybe revered is too much of a word, but in that vein, other people have felt influenced by. And I can see a lot of those elements in this film.
I can see that. I mean, I've seen other sort of Italian horror films, and there were certain elements that
felt very similar.
Were familiar, yeah. And I could see how, if you're like a real film studies geek, that you might like really get a thrill out of this, because there's a lot of, you could see the director was, I don't know what's the word I'm trying to go for, but he was really trying to
do something
more with this story, to do something more artsy, and I went to film school. I went to the film studies classes, and that my experiences in film studies classes made me not like movies for a while, because it was just everybody trying to figure out what's the most
lofty
interpretation, who could say the biggest word, who could find what the hidden meanings were. And to me, I want to enjoy a film. I want to enjoy the story, and if there's some meaning behind it that affects me and I enjoy it, or it makes me think, that's a bonus. But when it comes down to it, I want to be entertained by a movie. And there was so much weird stuff going on. Any sort of entertainment was clouded behind that. It just got to the point where I'm like, half of the movie, I'm just sort of like, what the hell was that? What is going on in this thing? Why did this scene happen at all? What are these people doing? Why are they even? They should still be mourning. And what the hell is this guy doing in Italy? And what is the purpose of the priest? Why does the priest, the bishop, just not give doesn't give a shit about anything? You can see he doesn't care. This guy's like, Donald Sutherland's like, oh, you know, this part of the church is falling apart, and the foundation needs this, and the priest is, the bishop's just care. The bishop's just like, yes, I'll see you on Thursday. You know, that's it. That was it. And it was then at the end, suddenly, like, he wakes up at a certain point in the movie where something's going on, like, oh, maybe he has an important role to play. No, he doesn't. The bishop could have been out of the film. He could have been just like, oh, I spoke to the bishop and he said thumbs up on those tiles. That was another thing, when he gives them the little mosaic tiles to like see, okay, will these new mosaic tiles match the old ones? And like there's this whole big scene and a big production, and Donald Sutherland almost dies, and the tiles get splattered all over the floor, and the priest, after all this crazy chaos goes down, the priest just is like, and he just walks away. A man almost died, and the priest was just like,
yeah, whatever. Well, they did have a moment afterwards when they take the walk, and he's like, my dad died from a fall, too.
Well, then you'd think he'd be more invested in seeing this guy survive, but he was just like, it was like Garfield on a Monday. He just didn't care.
I didn't dislike it as much as you. I mean, it's one of those movies that I'd never seen, that I'd always been curious about. I have seen other films by Nicholas Roeg, so I was curious as to what this was, and it does appear in a lot of film lists about movies that are influential and stuff. So I think that was where I was coming from with this film. I didn't dislike it as much as you. There were some problematic elements to it that I couldn't wrap my head around. I think the strangeness of the people in the film, the way they acted,
like the chief of police,
like the chief of police, or that guy, whoever that guy was. Like, that was very weird, and it took me out of the story. The ability to not understand fully what all the Italians were saying was also a little jarring, but I think it was supposed to be. I think you're supposed to kind of be a fish out of water in those instances where you're just like, you don't know what's going on.
That was another thing I didn't get. Donald Sutherland could speak Italian.
Yeah,
and
so
then there was the scene where he goes after his wife.
Yeah.
And he's standing outside the hotel room of the two psychics, and some guy comes out of his room, and he's just like, "Qu'est-ce or something, whatever he says in Italian.
That's French.
I don't know. Scuse, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Scungili. But he starts saying, and Donald Sutherland just goes, English, yes. Which was weird. And then another guy comes out, and he's like,
and it's weird because he is proficient. I mean, he's very proficient in the restaurant.
He's working with an entire crew of Italian guys
who don't speak a lick of English.
Yeah. He's speaking to the bishop. He's everybody. I mean, he's not the greatest Italian speaker in the world, but he clearly understands what a guy coming out of his door and saying, "What the hell are you doing in this hallway?" would be saying.
Right, exactly. So there were little things like that were strange. I also kept turning to you at some points in the film, like, why are the streets so damn empty?
Yeah.
That also put me off.
Well, that I actually didn't mind so much, because that if there was anything in the film that was somewhat scary. I mean, I know this is the term, and this is categorized as suspense horror, was the fact that there were parts of Venice where it was weird, where they're walking around and they're lost. Him and John Sutherland and his wife, they're completely lost. And they're just like walking around these like little narrow alleyways and whatnots, and then suddenly some guy will be in a window just going, and then there'll be like the little red coat person scurrying in the distance.
Yeah, but only he sees it. I don't think you ever see Julie Christie notice it.
I don't think Julie. Yeah, she never. But it was there. But she never. She at that point she had already walked away, and then he saw the little thing, and then for some reason he was just like stroking that rock, going, "I've been here before."
Yeah.
What the hell was that? Was that part of his psychic powers or something?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, the sister, who was the clairvoyant, was Heather. The other one was Wendy. Heather kept saying that he had the gift of second sight.
God.
During the seance,
she's just like mashing her tits. She's just like, what was that? You're at the age where I don't want to see you mashing your tits. Stop it. Just mashing her tits and wailing. And it was just like, what is going on?
Yeah, there was a lot of weirdness in this movie. Again,
sex scene.
We have not even gotten
what the and prior to the sex scene, it was just like, for Christ's sake, put some clothes on.
Yes. I kept thinking, I was like, oh, I really don't want to see Donald Sutherland jump.
Yeah, Julie Christie goes to take a bath, and then suddenly Donald Sutherland is just butt naked, and he's walking around, and it's just...
And the lady comes with the towel.
Yeah, the lady, he leaves the bathroom after brushing his teeth, and he's still butt naked. And he just sits down, and then there's a knock on the door, and his butt naked wife is like, "Come on in!" And the the maid
Well,
comes
no,
in.
she had the foresight to wear a towel.
Well, she wasn't even in the room.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's just sitting there looking at pictures naked. I don't know. I can't work nude. When I sit down to work, I'm at least wearing a pair of underwear. You see Donald Sutherland's skinny ass.
You know what? He's probably comfortable in his nakedness. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, we didn't even get to
That's followed with the longest sex scene I've ever seen in a movie. Just went on forever. And what the hell, like there's a part in the sex scene where Donald Sutherland is just doing this crazy thing where he's like trying to shove his arm behind Julie Christie's head while he's fucking her. And it's just like, what are you doing? What the hell is this guy doing? It was like he was going to give her a DDT or something.
Maybe that's a thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, it was the 70s.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know what was going on.
So yes, I think you pretty much summed up the kind of long sex scene in this movie. It was still weird to watch because
and it was made even longer by the fact that for some reason they were cutting the sex scene with scenes of them getting dressed and going out to dinner.
Yeah. There's a lot of choices in this that were very strange, but I could see where this is looked at as kind of an artsy kind of film in a more horrific / suspenseful tone. I feel like there are elements in this film that have carried over and influenced other directors. The kind of frenetic pacing, the strange cutting of instances where you don't know if you're in the past or the present or the future. The use of color, I think at one point I turned to you, the use of the color red is like a unifying element here in several instances. In the first scene, Christine's wearing all red. She's wearing like a red raincoat and a red sweater and a red skirt and red tights. She has a red and white ball. Later in the movie, the little dwarf person is wearing a similar red, not exactly the same, but like a a red wool coat.
Yeah.
Julie Christie has these red boots. There was a scene where after she faints in the restaurant and she's in the hospital, there's a child also playing with a red and white ball. So I feel like the color red is important, and it's interesting because it made me think of The Sixth Sense, where
I thought the same thing too. I thought maybe this was one of those influences.
Yeah, I mean it could be. I mean I don't know. I haven't deep dived into that, but it's interesting that it's like this one unifying element, and then in this case the use of color and how it threaded through the story and is supposed to call your attention, whether it's important or not. I'm not sure. Obviously, in The Sixth Sense, it's more of an important plot story device.
There's more of a focus on it when certain things are happening. Whereas in this, you did see red,
but it wasn't
you're like, am I associating this with death? Am I associating this with danger? But then there were other times when you just see red. Like I remember he was walking down the street and there was just like a red pair of pajamas hanging from a clothesline.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, something's going to happen.
There's also the motif of glass, right? When glass breaking, right? The sun, like, cracking that glass as he's
over a window pane.
Yeah, when he's riding his bike. The glass breaking in that scene in the church with Donald Sutherland. Don't want to give out too much away in case people want to watch this and be surprised if they haven't seen it. If you have seen it, then I'm sure you have your own interpretations and thoughts and feelings about this movie. I too was I don't regret watching it. I feel like I never need to see this again. It wasn't the worst movie. It wasn't the best movie. I feel like I'm glad I got it out of my system. Like I said, it was one of those things that was always on a list of movies that are influential. I was always curious, having also been a film student. It's always interesting to see like the genesis of other filmmakers' kind of work styles. So there was a lot here.
Yeah, I think this film is like good for like a sort of a deep analysis of like, I don't know, possible storytelling techniques that I don't know may have influenced stuff in the future, but
yeah.
Entertaining it is not.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't.
And I know we're doing all this for Halloween or October, or we're steering towards horror films. This really is not.
Yeah,
Even remotely frightening or a horror. I mean, there's a subplot with a serial killer in it, and it does intersect with the main story of the couple, but in such a
kind of
like
secondary
it's
way.
almost like it's almost an accidental kind of. It really doesn't. I mean, they connect at some point.
Yeah.
And it's just it's like that, and then that's the end of the connection, and you see, okay, that's why he saw that. Okay, that's why he's had that premonition.
Yes.
And I guess that's supposed to be the gotcha moment, but it really was not satisfying for me. This if you want a scary movie for Halloween, don't watch this.
Yeah.
Don't watch this.
I mean, if you're curious about film and breaking down movies and
you like asking the question why,
yes, then this is for you. But as far as like horror, suspense, it's just okay. I feel like I've seen better 70s English / Italian movies that are better than this. I can't think of anything at the top of my head right now, but I feel like there's other ones that are better. The 70s and 80s were like a gold mine for horror movies. I feel like there was a lot of it going on, and I mean, I could see where people borrow from each other different influences and different little techniques and stuff. So, I mean, in that respect, if you're like a student of film, definitely check it out. If you're not, you might give it a pass. If you were going to give it a number from 1 to 10, what would you say?
I would give it 4.
A 4. Interesting.
I did not enjoy this. If like not really scary horror films are your thing, or if you're really into overly long sex scenes with lots of bony white asses, those two are skinny. Those two. And like it's funny because she's like, oh, you're getting a little pudge around the middle.
I'm like,
and I'm
where?
Like, Donald Sutherland's getting some pudge from Donald Sutherland from the 70s. He's getting pudge around the middle. He looked like a scarecrow. Yeah. Scarecrow made of milk. So if that's your thing, then good for you. But for me, this was not
a pleasant experience.
This is a 4.
All right. Well, you know what? I would give it a 6. It wasn't the worst thing I've seen. It wasn't the best thing I've seen. But I think I would give it a 6. It wasn't. Again, I feel like I've seen it. I've exercised it out of my system. I don't ever need to see this again. I was always curious about this film. I like Nicholas Roeg. I like some of his other works. I listened to him in interviews and stuff.
Enjoyed The Witches.
Yeah. Which is so different than this. It's only 7 years later, I think, and it's like night and day. And it's funny because I'm glad you brought that up, because another thing as I'm watching this, and I don't know if you do this, but sometimes when I'm watching a film, especially from somebody who has a long career, I always try to like kind of connect the dots. Like, oh, what is it about this film that's very similar to this other film that he did in a different point in time, or this other film? Like, you could do that a lot with like maybe somebody like Scorsese, where I feel like the narrative is very, very similar, and the look of movies is very, very similar, right? But something like this was definitely way different. And I don't know if it's like the 70s, because like you always mentioned, everything seems so urine tinged in the 70s. Because even the look of the witches.
Yeah, I think it's just like
even though it looks old,
the film stock they used or whatever they used to preserve films from the 70s has not aged well. Has not aged well. So a lot of stuff that came out of the 70s. It seems like a lot, and for some reason, it always has like Donald Sutherland or Elliot Gould in it. Always just looks so like grimy. Yeah, like seriously, it looks like it was stored in a bucket of pee.
for October, speaking of Donald Sutherland, we should see if we can find the 70s version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. That wasn't a bad movie, I think. I mean, I haven't seen it in probably 20 years, but...
I just remember seeing that as a kid with my my mom.
You saw it in the movies?
We saw it in the theater at the Kingsway. And,
shout out to the Kingsway.
Yeah, no longer there. It's now Walgreens. And the only thing I remember was...
The ending.
There was the ending.
Which is... Yes, amazing.
And also the dog with the man's head on it.
Yes, of course. Of course.
And that my mom hated it. My mom hated it. She
Really?
was just like, that was so stupid. I was too young to form an opinion. I mean, God, when did that come out? That was
70 something.
Yeah, I was probably like, I remember I had just come back from the dentist when I saw it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of an interesting after.
Went to the dentist and it was like, oh, you can't eat yet. Let's go to the movies. So I went to the movies and then after
1978. God dang.
So I was 5.
Wow.
What the hell am I seeing Invasion of the Body Snatchers? So we saw that and then I think we got Chinese food.
I'm trying to remember the first time I saw it. I don't remember if I saw it in the theater, but I'm sure I've seen it multiple times, like on Channel 11, like a Saturday movie or something.
I've seen it more on TV than...
Yeah.
I remember more of it from TV.
Yeah. Because as you get older, right?
Really, the striking things were Donald Sutherland's weird scream at the end. The dog with the human head on it.
I remember being frightened of it. Of that movie.
I was too young. Honestly, I had no idea what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
I really had no clue. I think I was like that was when I'm at the age where you're just like the part of the theater, unless there was like a cartoon or something, and I had to go to the movies. It was just basically crawling around on the floor, trying to not.
Well, you know, it's funny. Even as a small child, and kids are rambunctious and full of energy. To me, like theater or movie theaters were like church. It was like sacred space. Again, I'm such a huge fan of storytelling that I will sit through movies even if they're just complete excrement because I'm so invested in stuff. Like, it's funny, a running joke that I have with my husband is that I think we were just married. I think we were living at 511, and there was a TV movie called London Bridge with the ever-illuminating David Hasselhoff, and it was a made-for-TV movie, and it was on, and I was watching it, and then we had to go somewhere.
Yeah, I think we were meeting one of your friends
or something. I can't remember, and to this day, my husband and I have been together almost 20 years, or we have been together 20 years, but whatever. To this day, it still bothers me that I don't know how that movie ended.
I'm going to make a guess, and I'm going to say that David Hasselhoff kills Jack the Ripper in an unspectacular fashion by pushing him off London Bridge.
You could be right.
I bet that's exactly how it ends.
Yeah, maybe. But it still bothers me. I still bring it up to this day. I feel incomplete as a person because I don't know how that movie ended.
No, I'm the same way. When I sit down for a movie, I'll want to sit through the whole thing and just watch the whole thing.
Yes, even if you hate it, because it's like I feel like I've invested so much time in this.
So much time, unless
I gotta see it all the way through.
Unless it's like painfully bad, and then I'll give. But that's all. But if I've started from the beginning, I'll generally sit there. But if I come in on something and I'm like, the film is like 15 minutes in, it's sort of like that's my out. I'm like, oh well, I didn't see it from the beginning. My commitment isn't 100%.
I think I've only fallen asleep at the movies that one time that you and I went to see that Willem Dafoe movie, Nosferatu.
Oh, Nosferatu.
Yeah. I usually try not to fall asleep at the movie theaters.
At
home,
I remember
it's anybody's game.
When we saw the BFG, I forced myself to fall asleep because it was so terrible.
It really was. Yeah. It really, really was. I still scratch my head about that movie.
We're going off on tangents here.
Sorry. So that's it from us. A full 4 and a 6.
Yeah.
You figure it out.
I say skip it.
Yes, I too would
Unless
say
you
hard
want
pass.
to see really awkward sex scenes.
Yes. That might be in some
Hey,
people's wheelhouse too.
yeah.
So
You might
if
learn.
that's the thing you want to do,
Maybe you'll learn a new maneuver from Donald Sutherland.
it really was bizarre.
And the thing that's even more funny about it, when they revisited the sex scene in like that sort of like flashback at the very end of the film, that move was the one that they showed.
Displayed, yes.
That was the one that
it
they
did
showed.
look like a wrestling move.
What?
I'm like, what is going on here?
Who does that with their arm? I don't know. It's indescribable. Maybe you should see it just to see what the hell this guy's doing with his arm. Why is it behind her head? It's okay.
That's it for us.
That's it for us. Yep.
Good night.
Good night.